I remember distinctly working with one fairly young man who couldn't get a job. He couldn't get a job. And I used to do a lot of interviewing skills with people, the visual, the verbal, the non-verbal. And it was in the days when there weren't video interviews. So I actually was able to coach him in person. He was actually going to interview hither and yon when he got an interview. Um, and so I talked to him for a few minutes and could easily see why he was not able to secure an interview. He was banging the table and very aggressive and um, really overwhelmingly um, t- uh, telling me about himself in such an aggressive way that I felt overwhelmed. And I said, well, what is your experience? You know, he was like, you know, hitting and, you know, very, very hard hitting, straight and aggressive body language. And I said, hang on a second. Um, what is your background? And he said, oh, well, I'm in HR. And I thought, oh. Um, so I said, well, do you know how you're coming across? You're coming across actually as rather intimidating. And it's your body language. It's very heavy, it's very aggressive. And since I'd done courses and done a diploma in body language, I was able to explain how to soften up his body language and make it more curved as opposed to straight and heavy, curved and soft. And he tried that, and it was as different as night and day. And so he said, oh, you know what? It was my dad that taught me to be like that. He said I had to be very, very powerful when I spoke. And so I've always adopted that way of speaking. And I said, well, tell me about your family. Well, in that moment, his whole demeanor changed as he told me about his sweet little 6-year old and his family. And I could tell he was a loving, caring person. And with his HR background, I knew that everything about him was so not what his body language was and what he was coming across as. And so I coached him several times in the visual, the verbal, and the non-verbal. And a few weeks later, he said, you know what, Lynne? I actually think I've got a second interview. I said, great. He said, I will tell you what happens. So he goes to the interview and he comes back. He said, I've got the job. I can't believe it. Thank you so, so much. I said, goodness, what is the job? He said, it's actually a senior VP at Starbucks. And I went, oh my word, they are so touchy-feely company, you know, they're so into personal relationships. That's what they wanted from him, was his loving side and his warm and affectionate side, not his aggressive side, not his corporate side, you know. And so he always credited me for helping him get that job. And it was a lovely, lovely story that I was able to keep and tell back. And so body language plays a huge part in the way we speak and come across. And we can always modify and adjust the visual, the verbal, and the non-verbal. And that's what's so great about what I do. I can turn someone and they can turn themselves into a different person, how they're coming across, simply by the techniques we use.